So I talked about this the other day where I said, the death rate was between 0.5
Right.
and 0.02%. I was specifically referring to the USC Los Angeles County study and how that actually sort of correlated with the Santa Clara County study. Well, there's a new one that just came out. This is, they tested pregnant women, right, for COVID in New York.
New York City, yeah.
A whopping 15% tested positive. Okay?
Wow.
15% of pregnant women tested positive. So according to this article, that means that the infection rate of the population, I think it's the pregnant population, but overall the population, is at minimum 11 to 14 times higher than they previously thought.
Than the 200 and something thousand cases they have right now.
Right. So when you take that and you take the USC study, by the way, where I think it was, that's right. The USC study showed that it was 25 to 58 times more likely, the infection rate.
The antibody study.
Not a bastion of republicanism, USC. And then, of course, you have the Santa Clara study that said it was likely 50 to 80 times more likely.
Insane. Yeah.
You add it all up, I said the death rate would be between 0.2. Was that what I said? 0.2 and 0.02. Or 0.05, sorry.
Yeah.
No, in New York, where it's at its worst, this means that right now it's between 0.7, and that's including all deaths, by the way. All deaths, including old people, diabetics, people with hypertension.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you actually eliminate, according to the New York statistics, because we're data-driven, not talking about, granted, a tragic sob story on CNN, data does matter. According to New York, they said 95% of cases are either old people or people with comorbidities.
Yeah.
Let's scale that back. Let's just say 90. In Italy, it was 98. In New York, it was 95%. But let's say that 90% of these deaths in New York, somewhere between 19,000 and 20,000, right, are old people. So you take that number and you times it by 0.1. That gives you the total number.
Right.
Okay. That means that in New York, the death rate is 0.7% tops. And on the low end for healthy adults, meaning of average age, you could be 40, you could be 50, 0.05%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very low number.
0.05%.
You could say that's different.
You can say.
And as low, by the way, as low as 0.0%. Because yesterday when we were using the number, I was using 80% of cases only being older people. So if you use the number...
It's an override. They're doing
I get it.
Every time.
YouTube overlords.
Just keep pushing this.
We should have listened. Taiwan going to bat for us. Or Quick Trip. Either one. Either one I will take.
Well, and Stephen, one of the things I swore to you when you asked me yesterday, what do you think they're going to talk about? I was sure that they were going to bring up these studies and say, hey, we probably have a higher infection rate. I've done some more research since then, and some people have said it, but they've said it in a negative way. Every single time they talk about these infection rates being higher, they're not using they're not using that. Right now on CNN, they're saying this many people have been infected, this many people have died. They're not using that. They're saying, well, this is worse because
saying
it's far more widespread than we thought. Well, that means it's actually less. There's a lower mortality rate. It's less deadly. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So that number going up is the bottom number of the fraction. So as that number goes up, that means a smaller death rate.
Mathematics. And something
you're not a math Asian, but you're close.
Something else that is pretty important to note is they keep saying, and by the way, deaths that have happened at home, so undoubtedly the overall death rate will go higher. No, it won't, because most people aren't dying at home, by the way. Most people are actually dying in hospitals, and then you're adding several thousand more to the total death rate, as we saw in New York City.
Just randomly.
Added over 3,000 people saying we're pretty sure they had COVID.
Yeah.
So the death rate, honestly, is probably higher. It's inflated, certainly. And it's obviously certainly higher if you're just talking about the average healthy American, because you're including people like that study with the chloroquine. They had an average of 3 pre-existing conditions, and they were all over 65 years old. No, the death rate really should go down when you eliminate, if you just right now eliminate all the deaths registered that were never tested for COVID, boom, you cut that down by I don't know how many thousands. There was over 3,000 in one day. And then you multiply the infection rate by at minimum 20 times, potentially 60 or 80 times, according to Santa Clara. Let's split it down the middle and say 40 times. You're looking at a death rate very comparable to the flu. Not saying you shouldn't take precautions. It's a far more communicable disease than the flu, but not nearly as deadly as we were led to believe. And I don't believe, I make no apologies, certainly not a reason to shut down the economy and take away everyone's livelihood.
Well, if it's a fraction, again, the top number's going down, the bottom number's going up. That means smaller.
There's good news, but instead we have to play a story about a bus driver who died, which is sad. I get it, but there's great news out there, guys. Hey, this probably isn't killing nearly as many people who get this virus as we thought. That should be banner headline news, front page of every newspaper in the country, and it's not being covered at all.
And by the way, see this right now, they say Georgia coronavirus hospitalizations. If we can bring this up, actually, given as an overlay, we had this yesterday where they were saying, remember when this initially started, you don't need to bring up, the CNN, but you can just show it. We don't need to listen to it. They're talking about more hospitalizations in Georgia. Okay, the number that matters is the deaths per capita. That's
Right.
the number that matters. That's the only one that you can accurately gauge at this point. Hospitalizations are very subjective because some people go to the hospital early, some people go to the hospital late. Now, early on, and we ran this, I think, as a meme with the then and now, what did they tell you if you were young? You didn't have pre-existing conditions, and you thought you had COVID symptoms. They said, stay away from the hospital. Don't go in. Don't infect anybody else. And then now, because they have empty hospitals, they've built new hospitals. No one's overfilling them, and they're panicking, and they have to furlough workers. They have to lay them off. Now they are saying, and this was on CNN, I believe, yesterday, they're saying, people are waiting too long to go to the hospitals. You need to go to the hospitals right away. Well, there you go. That right there can affect, if you have that on the media, a broadcast like a morphine drip, go to the hospital, go to the hospital, go to the hospital. Have a cough, go to the hospital. Runny nose, go to the hospital right away. Take no chances. That will increase hospitalizations. Have the deaths correlated directly with increased hospitalizations? No, they haven't. That's what matters. So when they say, look at this, hospitalizations are going up, people are resisting opening up in Georgia. No, more people are going to the hospital because you've told them now that they should go to the hospital when you told them that they shouldn't, just like people are wearing masks now because you're telling them that they should wear masks when before you told them that they shouldn't. But that doesn't mean that the death rate per capita is going up in Georgia. It doesn't mean that it's becoming more deadly. It means that more people are making the decision to go to the hospital, likely because they're driving by going, it looks pretty empty. I'll take a shot at a test.
Right, exactly. Well, let's remember, we shut down the economy for one reason only, right? It was to make sure that we did not overwhelm the hospital system in the United States. That was it. We had to flatten the curve.
Flatten the curve.
That's what we got preached and preached and preached, right?
Flatten the curve. When was the last time you heard about the curve?
Yeah, guess what? We didn't even come close.
Bring this back up, CNN. Look, hospitalization.
They're going up.
Can someone bring up the deaths in Georgia for me? Can we do that? Bring up the deaths in Georgia.
Yeah,
and I want to see if it directly correlates to the hospitalizations. Not if deaths have gone up, they can go up, but do they correlate directly with the hospitalizations? Because that is the number that matters. And the governor is saying we are past the peak.
Well, it just goes to show that no matter what numbers you throw at CNN or CNN puts on, it will always be spun into fear. There is no way of interpreting it in any kind of positive way. You're not allowed to be happy.
Right.
We've got the numbers from Reg.
Yeah, what do we have on the Reg
we have
from the
79 million, 79 deaths per million.
79 deaths per million. And what I would be interested to see is, we can't bring it up right now, but to see where they're showing, look, more hospitalizations. That is happening across the board, I can say, across the country. But there are more hospitalizations and in many cases fewer deaths.
You're talking about a graph.
Yeah, a graph. And if you take away, obviously, if you take away the 3,000, and your guess is as good as mine, being tossed up there that never tested positive for COVID, you can't just talk about hospitalizations, just like you can't just talk about infection rates. You have to talk about deaths, specifically deaths per capita. That is the number that matters. I disagree with Ben Shapiro because he was talking about the mortality rate. Well, guess what? That just changed, like Ed Rooney's computer with Ferris Bueller's absentee days. Beep, beep, beep. The only number that you can rely upon without human intervention, human error, are the deaths per million at this point. And even then, they're still not that reliable because they are skewed by them adding to the total deaths, but at least it puts it somewhat in context. Whereas the hospitalizations, that can be directly affected. This is the same reason that you have insider trading laws. It can be directly affected by someone going wherever they are. They're not going up anymore. There's no stage. They're sauntering on over to their laptop without a microphone and talking about hospitalizations and telling people you need to go to the hospital. You need to go to the hospital. You need to go to the hospital. We said you shouldn't go to the hospital, but now we're saying you need to go to the hospital. You need to go as soon as possible. What do you think is going to happen? You have the ability to directly influence the market and force more people into the hospital. And so you say hospitalizations are up, but guess what? More people going to the hospital has led us to be able to conduct more antibody tests, which we've referred to, and that has let us know, CNN, that it's 20 to 60 times more prevalent than we thought, and that brings the death rate down to 0.5 tops, potentially 0.02%. But you only cover the hospitalizations because you told people to do it.